Hello, everyone. Welcome to the UpRev Ninja podcast. If this is your first time listening, thanks for joining us. This show is produced each week with the single intent of discovering the tips, tricks, hacks, and lessons learned from our guests that has catapulted them into living the best version of themselves. Join your host, Tom Hudson, as he continues his search for the best methods to UpRev his life. Now, let's dive into the show.
So in this episode, I interview Gabriella. She's an author, speaker, visionary, and a female cycle consultant who helps women gain confidence, authority, and fulfillment in life by knowing their body better. She helps women to make their female cycle their best friend, improve their relationship, and find a more satisfying way to have better intimacy. Hi, Gabriella. Welcome to the UpRev Ninja podcast. I've already read your bio to my audience. However, I would love for you to share a bit about yourself to us.
Hi, Tom. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast today. A bit about myself. Big question. Let's start saying that I came into this world in a country called Italy. Turin is my hometown, which is in the northwest part of Italy, and I done my study there, and then I moved to UK 19 years ago. So I've been living now for almost half of my life under the English rain.
Okay.
So a bit different as a culture, as a country, etc. But let's say that possibly, nothing really happens by mistake. So there must be something here for me. I still haven't discovered it, but they say life is a journey. So maybe one day I will discover it. God knows. But just to share a few things about myself is I can say I studied languages. Particularly French, English, German, and Arabic, and then I had a kind of an interesting itinerary, meaning that I came across personal development, so to speak, as a general terms, meaning many things, but early on when I was in my 20s, and the way that I came across this alternative world, let's call it this way, it was because I was an interpreter. So I ended up in an international Swiss center where there were macrobiotic courses held there to translate, to interpret. And that was my way into the crazy world, magic world, personal development world, or however you want to call it. And so since then, I've been, walking on my path and trying to discover why I'm here and what I got to do here. Well, but I've had several aha moments in my life that were pivotal, and that, I think everybody has got those. They just they differ from one person's life to another.
Yeah, I think it's the ability to see those moments, right? Be able to, recognize the moment for what it is and to be able to learn from it and not shy away from it. I think that's what's very important. And I think that's what separates people that try to learn from their mistakes or from just opportunities that they've had versus, people that just, seem to repeating the same thing over and over and over again.
Funnily enough, you said something very important. I would like to expand a bit. I don't believe really we make mistakes. I think in every given moment of our life, we really do our best. But it's only with hindsight that then when we look back, then we might decide, oh, that was a mistake. But in the moment, it wasn't. So Yes. So I would say, like you said, there are opportunities really.
Yeah, I tried to correct myself. The words had already come out of my mouth. So it's programming. It's so difficult. Our culture. But yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, it's like you said, hindsight's 2020. So I imagine learning, these different languages, being an interpreter, living in, Italy, the UK, and elsewhere, eh, coming across all the various cultures and uh, their method of, either taking care of themselves or their family or, anything that had to open up your mind to so many different possibilities compared to what you were uh, born with and, how you were raised in Italy, seeing how different cultures, I mean, you had to have
Well,
light bulb moments, right?
say it again.
You had to have some aha moments as you saw these other cultures based on how you were raised, correct?
Yeah, I consciously chose to study languages because I felt very tight and itchy in Turin since a very early age. And so I remember in my younger mind trying to figure out how I could escape. and, and so I thought um, the school system in Italy is such that it's only at high school, when you are 16, that you can really decide something specific and give a certain direction to your life. And so I remember that having finished my secondary school, I was thinking in the summer because I had to decide what it would be next, and I really didn't know, and then I thought, you know what? If I study languages, because there are very few people in the world that speak Italian, unlike English, that is spoken all over the world, really.
Right.
And so I thought I stand a better chance to be able to live in different countries first, and second, it allows me the opportunity to communicate with more people. And I remember when I was in my childhood, during the summertime, my parents really liked going trekking in the mountains. And so we went for several years in the Dolomites, which is an area in the northeast of Italy where there are many people speaking German. I remember feeling so awkward and stressed and frustrated because I couldn't understand what these people were saying. And I think that really it was a trigger, definitely, for me to want to be able to speak more than just one language. And I have to say, with hindsight, it was a good decision because it allows you to broaden your mind, because it's not just a question of being able to speak and communicate directly with more people, but it's also a question it shapes how your brain works and operates.
Right.
You see, the way a language is structured tends you to be in a certain way. And I remember that I experienced this already while I was at high school. That I noticed that while if I was speaking French, I would be slightly different if I would speak in English, for instance, or German, And I thought, so this is peculiar. And again, with hindsight, I can say it was and still is a good exercise, like kind of a cultural gym, really. Because it allows you to explore more. Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
And also the other thing that helped me as well is the fact that while I was still studying at university, I was started working during the summertime as a tour leader. So I was escorting tours abroad. And that, again, it was very helpful to come across different cultures. different countries, and especially observing my connationals,
Yeah.
how they would behave abroad and the comments and all this. It was quite a learning curve.
So take me from, you know, you're born in Italy, you become an interpreter, and you're going through all this, all the way up to, you published a book recently, entitled Antarctic Odyssey: A New Beginning, and you kind of talk about how, you share your insights and your experience in the Antarctic, but also to help people listen to, their heart and live unconventionally. How did you get from, learning these languages at that age to all the way to, now I'm going to the Antarctic to help people?
Yeah.
Like, what's that journey look like? How did you get there?
Yeah, well, I will summarize it. So, I studied languages, got my degree, my diploma as an interpreter, and then I continued for a while to be a tour leader. And what happened was in the 1997, I was assigned for 3 months in the Maldives, and I was working there as a rep. And so I met through that job, I met a Briton and who happened to live in London, and so we got to know each other because on the island I was working with as a rep. It was quite tiny. You could walk slowly around it in 5 minutes.
Wow.
The Maldives are kind of a bunch of islands that can be quite tiny, and the one I was on, it was definitely small. And so in my spare time, I was diving, meaning going underwater. And he was there on holiday, and he was also a diver. So the diving instructor buddied us up, meaning that you always go down underwater with somebody together, so you check each other all the time.
Right.
And so that was the way we met, then we got along well. Then after I finished working there, I went to visit him in London to understand if it was just a holiday romance or it was something more. And it was definitely something more. And so a few months later, I moved to London for good to live with him. And obviously, by then we weren't just friends, we became partners, having an intimate relationship, and then we got married, and then the relationship, well, actually, I can't say got worse, because it never really was very good, but sometimes, again, we do our best, as we were saying earlier. So it seems a good thing for me, and so I follow my heart.
Right.
I got married to him, and so then the things evolved, and I reached a point when I realized that I couldn't put up with this relationship any longer. And I want to say, the way women are wired, structured, biologically designed, or whatever, it tends to make us sometimes wanting to make things do, and we convince ourselves that no, there's nothing wrong with, maybe the relationship is all wrong with you. And so I didn't differ from any other woman in that respect. And so I really tried all the possibility to be able to survive in this relationship, but it didn't. I reached a point when I realized that I was dying. Right. Meaning emotionally, psychologically, there was no space for me in there any longer. And so that was the turning point, that when I realized, Gabriella, it's time to wake up. It's time to change the song in the jukebox.
Yeah.
Or to do something different, or think differently or make a good decision or whatever it is. And so I did. And then I had to face divorce, which wasn't an easy thing. I'm sure there are many people out there that experience this. And but for me, it was a bit traumatic because, well, first of all, I lived in UK and I'm still living in UK, but I don't have any relatives or no family. So I was really on my own. It's a challenging time, generally speaking. So it's maybe that time when you would cherish to have maybe some close kins of yours,
Right.
But so that kind of gave me an opportunity to step up, meaning really have to become resourceful even more because that's it. Then, of course, there was on top of that facing the legalities of it, which is, again, it's not something particularly easy or pleasant already in your own country, in your own language. You can imagine in a foreign language in a foreign country. But also what happened to me at the same time, it was that I was made redundant at work at the same time. So it was many things put together, made me really realize that I became alone, meaning I lost my social background through work, through the marriage. So all of a sudden to find yourself in a capital where there are millions of people living there, it was a lonely place to be. And I'm not a person that normally feels lonely at all. But with hindsight, I realized that I felt that way because emotionally I was destroyed. Psychologically, I was destroyed. And as a consequence of that, you see, everything it feels like a challenge. Everything feels difficult. You start feeling afraid more. And it's just human, right?
Right. Yeah, no, I think I know I can relate, and I know many people can relate to hitting a wall like that. As some people say, hitting rock bottom. But that's when you really grow because you hit these challenges and people you take advantage of them. And you're like, I have to change who I am or what I'm doing, and you come out on the other side so much stronger and wiser. So
yes, in the moment it's horrible, but
it is.
Then again, maybe few months or few years later, when you look back, metaphorically speaking,
Yes.
of course, you realize that was the best thing that could happen to you, because if you had kept doing the same thing, you would be still the same person. So how did I end up in Antarctica?
Yeah.
Well, funnily enough, it was an acrimonious divorce. So we started by him, even if he didn't want it to go through. Strangely enough, it's difficult to understand sometimes what people do. But anyway, so unlike he thought it might happen, I said yes to it. And so then he found himself trapped because he started the proceeding, but he didn't want to divorce.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that reason, and he had started the proceedings, he tried to slow it down as much as possible. So it went on for 2 years.
Wow.
It could have been just quite much more quickly,
Right.
quicker, but it didn't. And besides, we didn't have, it was an easy one, and we didn't have family, children, so there wasn't really much to discuss about. But anyway, he decided to go to court, not once, but twice. So when eventually all this finished, 4 days later, exactly 4 days later, I I heard about this event that was held in London, and there was this Australian chap who was actually inviting people to join to go with him to Antarctica. And so I went to check it out, and I just talking about opportunities. I just couldn't say no. I just realized that I needed to go. I needed to, by the way, I had trained in NLP, neuro linguistic programming, the year before. And so I always been intrigued by the mind anyway. And so the purpose of this trip was actually to go to Antarctica to face fears and limiting beliefs. And so after I had been through, what I had been through, I thought, what's a better opportunity for me,
Right.
than this? And so I signed up for this trip. And that's the way that life made me go to Antarctica.
That's great. No, that's great. I mean, it's funny how, we never know, like hindsight's always 20/20. We never know where we're going and where these circumstances are going to take us. So it's great that you said yes. I mean, so many people say no to things. So
well, I can say this about what you just said. Well, first of all, it wasn't something I ever considered in my life to go, because I warm climate. It's definitely not warm.
Right.
And second, I'm glad as well that I said yes, even if it was pretty crazy. It made no financial sense, no rational sense, nothing. There was nothing but inside me I knew I always been a traveler, right?
Right.
Born traveler. So I knew that would have been the perfect thing for me to be able to rediscover myself, like to wash my mind, my brain, cleanse my body from all the residues, and of what I'd lived through, especially in the last 2 years. And so I said yes. But I want to share this silly thing because it might help other people.
Yeah.
I mean, to go there, it was a big financial, let's call it investment. But I was in a position that I could do that. And still, even if I was in my 40s, so a grown-up girl,
Right.
and I wasn't asking anybody any money, so I was pretty, independent at that point in time. Under that circumstance, I found it so difficult to still say yes to myself, go for it. And then after I decided and I paid for what I had to pay and signed everything I had to sign, etc., for me, the most challenging thing was to tell my parents about it and tell me how that can be explained if we don't consider the fact that the upbringing, the education, everything that creates us basically, or forms us for the best part of at least 2 decades in life, conditions are so much that then even if we are grown-up people, we might be grown up age-wise, but not necessarily we are grown up emotionally, psychologically.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, and I agree with that. And then on top of that, here in the States, and I don't know if this is universal, but they say men emotionally mature slower than women do. So think about that on top of what you just said. If you were in your 40s having those thoughts and that consideration, then where's a guy at in his 50s and he's asking those questions? So
yeah, well, fun. And you mentioned men, they say they tend to mature later than women. my ex-husband was 11 years older than me.
Yeah.
But I have to say that he showed me in so many ways how immature emotionally he was,
Right.
you know. And but again, I'm not saying this as an accusation, because we all, if we see something in somebody else, it's because ultimately we have it in ourselves. So
Right.
we recognize in others what we have ourselves. So you know, that was a very it was a really steep learning curve, but it was one of the nuggets that I learned through my training in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, because I learned that, you know, we all do this, we project on others. And it's so obvious now to me that it's true. That's what we do. Psychologically, we always do that all the time. That's why we judge. We tend to judge others and ourselves, you
Right.
know. And so, but when you understand that that's what we do, and you understand that actually you stand the chance, though, to choose something else, then that when you're on your freeing process, you know, on your freeing journey, because you might recognize something, you might not like it, but then if you don't abstain from judging and you start searching inside yourself when you've been that way, you know, then you see that we have everything inside. We really do. And it's just down to us in every single moment to choose what we prefer.
Correct.
To enact or to feel, or, you know.
So along those lines, because I agree with you that we do have everything within ourselves that we need. What do you think has held you back in the past, or the most frequently, of becoming the better version of you?
I think in a way that's a very good question, by the way, and I want to thank you for that, because it's a bit similar to saying, you know, you learn from your mistakes, but I don't really think we hold us back. That's something that holds us back, because I really believe we in every given moment we do our best. So it's always with hindsight, you see, that we might say, oh, that held me back, and back then, etc.
Well, let me maybe rephrase it, and I understand what you're saying. Like when, you know, the perspective I'm coming at is sometimes, like, some people become just debilitated with fear, and they're afraid to move on, or they have shame and they don't want to move on. It's not necessarily, I mean, looking back, they can always say, I was, you know, why did I have shame around, you know, that topic or whatever. Is there anything like that you feel like sometimes you come up to a brick wall and you're like, ooh, I don't want to do this because I'm afraid, or I have shame, or, you know, anything like that?
I think, okay, thank you for the reframing. I think maybe I was lucky and I was born a rebel, and
Okay.
that helped me a lot. What I mean by that is that since an early age, even if I felt afraid of something, I still pushed through. Maybe not all the time, but enough times to be where I am today.
Right.
So I think that really helped me. But I want to say this because I think is important, especially for women, because we do operate in a very different way from men, and so I can see that many things that happen to me because of my decision, etc., that were specific, relevant to me as a woman, and I can see it in other women as well. As women, we tend to think there's something wrong with us. And talking about the relationship and the marriage, okay? If I know myself better and more, I mean intimately, emotionally, psychologically, I don't think I would have allowed to be manipulated emotionally and psychologically by my ex-husband. Now, with hindsight, as we said, is a good thing to have. I can see, obviously, that manipulation was coming up in him because he was afraid, obviously, for something. Maybe he has been abused himself when he was younger. I don't know.
Right.
But the thing is, because I didn't know any better, you see, I didn't see that. And so I became, so to speak, a victim of it. Was the moment when I realized that my body was screaming at me, that my spirit was screaming at me, everything in every cell of my being was trying to wake me up. And I listened to it. So I think that one thing that can help mainly women, but men as well, but for women specifically is important. If you pay attention to what your body tells you, makes you feel, right? 99% of the time is right. It wants you to be feeling okay, feeling great, feeling better, and obviously become the best of yourself. But if you are conditioned, you tend to delete. You press delete, the button, you know? And so what you do, the body has to give you more pain or give you more insecurity or give you more doubts or give you more shame or whatever it is. But ultimately, the important thing is maybe to stop and look at whatever it is that comes up in your life, because yes, when we don't listen, it tends to, the light on the dashboard, it tends to become brighter and brighter.
So do you have a process that you follow? I mean, like journaling, meditation, exercise, anything like that? Or is it just, self-reflection, sitting on, the couch and, why did this happen today? What's your process look like?
Well, I meditated in different forms through the years, even before coming across, the personal development world and hearing about meditation. I think I was doing my own version intuitively since I was little. But let's say that when I eventually officially met the so-called meditation, I realized that yes, it's definitely something that helps, because it helps you to stop, or at least on a daily basis, to instead of just going through the day in a hamster wheel,
Right, yeah.
You get out of it, at least for a few minutes or 1 hour or whatever it is. But the other thing that helped me a lot, and I have to share this again, especially for women, through the years, I met many different therapies, different trainings, different philosophies. I read lots of books, etc., etc. But it wasn't until I came across the menstrual awareness that really I realized how this could help me, and actually it is helping me on a daily basis. And what do I mean by menstrual awareness? Well, what I mean is to become aware of how the female cycle affects a woman's body, and by affecting the woman's body also affects the woman's moods, the psyche, the thought process, and on a spiritual level as well, because we are all one thing, right? So be becoming knowledgeable about what actually happens every month in a woman's body, and how not just menstruation, which is the week when a woman bleeds, but the whole month in the different phases, has really helped me to discover so much more about myself on a very intimate level, meaning the body, obviously, how you feel on a daily basis, through the month, and also emotionally, which is important because we make a decision and take action according to our emotions. Emotions generally tend to trigger certain thoughts, and then from certain thoughts, we tend to go and do certain actions. So this, I think, is one of the things that for a woman is so key, really, so key. Also because it's almost, I call it my best friend. And by this, I mean, nature really designed us in a way that we have an inbuilt biological design that it helps us really during the menstruating years that more or less cover 30, 35 or 40 years of a woman's life, to really unfold and grow. But because there is so little about this in the outside world, it's changing, but it is really something that's gone lost for a long time. I think it's so important for women to really acquaint themselves with this inner wisdom, inner knowledge, because it makes you really grow. And I'm sure that if I'd known what I know now early on, when I was in my teens or 20s, I would have really grow up in a different way. I would have matured more as a woman, more quickly, and I wouldn't have possibly found myself in an abusive relationship, for instance, or in certain situations at work, or so many things. I'm sure they would have been different, very different. So that's definitely one of the things I would suggest the listener to look into it.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I mean, I think there's still like a stigma, shame, and just people in general being uncomfortable, even discussing, the menstruation cycle, much less, the benefits of it and how you can use it, to your benefit. So I think there's just a stigma around it, and people are stuck with that, and they can't get past that. So, well, along those lines, is there a book that you would recommend for, or a documentary or anything like that?
Yes, there are several books that can be quite helpful. And on my website, I do have links to some books that I personally read that I think they can be very useful for women to read. I do offer free discovery calls as well. So, if women out there want to know more about it, and they can contact me through my website. But on the website, there are also many articles I wrote. There are many interviews about it. There are videos. So not necessarily they have to spend money.
Okay, no, that's great. And when I publish the show notes, I'll have the link in there to your website and to all of this content. So thank you. What about just general?
I just wanted to add, This is important for men too, because I don't just want it to be one-sided,
Yeah.
All men have women in their lives. So besides also men, they come out of a woman's womb, right? So it would be so beneficial for men too to know more about this, because otherwise to me now it's so obvious why communication sometimes in a relationship, especially in intimate relationship, they break down. And but to me it's obvious now, but it wasn't obvious when I was in my 20s or my 30s or my 40s, right? Until I find out. And I think it's time to wake up all of us together, because we can then live in a very much better, more harmonious way, without prevailing on any one of us. Men are fathers, our husbands, our colleagues, their brothers, and so they deal with women all the time.
Yeah, I do agree. What about experiences? I mean, you've gone through a lot in your life, that we've covered today. Do you have a particular experience that was kind of eye-opening for you, or something that you would recommend people do on their own? And I mean, it could be book a trip to Antarctica 2 weeks before the ship sails. Anything like that.
Well, yes, I had many experiences in Antarctica. They changed me, and I do tell about these things in the book. But what I can say and share with people is this: what has been for me the biggest teacher of all time is nature. And whenever I felt down, whenever I felt in dire straits of all sorts, nature has always been there for me, to comfort me, to calm me down, to make me see things. Of course, doesn't normally speak with words like we do.
Right.
So, but there are other ways to communicate. For instance, I tend to have my daily walks, and I get out of the house in a certain state. By the time I've been in the woods and come back, and I feel totally different. So what's the difference? Well, I've been in nature, and everybody can do that, Even if you live in a city, maybe you can just go to a park or find your connection with nature. Because then again, like meditation is something that not necessarily has to cost money. Everybody can do it. And we all have that connection, with ourselves, the inner selves, and with nature as well. So it's all free, by the way. And I want to highlight this because we are in such a commercial world where even, in the personal development world, there's commercialization of everything.
Yeah, no, there is. And there is so much free content available.
Yeah.
So.
And for women, the cycle comes within body.
It's true. So
it doesn't cost.
So is there something that you're currently working on in your life that you're trying to improve upon and to get yourself to that next level?
Yes, I'm trying to reach more women. So my request or message out there is to women is to don't wait to find yourself in difficulties to do something about it. We are all united by our body and the fact that we bleed every month, and it's such a resource. And you see, if you are in pain, it's a good reason to come out of it, because the awareness of what goes on in our body helps us to come out of pain. Just that. And again, it's free. If for those women who are not in pain, even better, it's my call to action is well, you don't realize you are sitting on a gold mine and you're not making the best out of it. And for those women who maybe are aware that that is a shame issue maybe, or they have something connected to menstruation that it makes them feel guilty, dirty, whatever it might be, then is a good reason to look into this. To me, I never had that type of experience. I never felt dirty.
Right.
So I had my menstruation happening, but I know it's such a spread thing. And so even if it is not applicable to me, I know there are many women out there that maybe because of cultural conditioning or maybe religious conditioning, they live in that, they live with that. And it's never too late to free yourself, and to feel good. And also, how can it be that nature designs something that doesn't work?
Right.
Nature knows best, right?
Yeah, and again, I think going back to what you just said about cultural and religious conditioning, I mean, we have a lot of shame around this topic, and it's natural, it's nature. Why? So, well, yeah, no. So, thank you very much for sharing your story with us, and your thoughts and your tips and everything. Is there something that we haven't covered that you would like to express?
No, I think I would like just to leave the listeners as a final thing with the last line of my book, Antarctic Odyssey, A New Beginning, because it's a very short sentence, and I think it can be maybe remembered. And so it goes this way, because in the book I put, I narrated the story, what I went through the journey, but it was, there are many kind of lessons I learned. And at the end, I made a list of it just to have a practical bit at the end that, when I don't know what to do, I go and check which lesson I can use. But then at the end, I thought, well, life always throws at us, something unpredictable, unexpected, that we don't like or whatever. And so in those situations, what do you do? What do I do? And so I found like in the cards game, you have the jolly, right? The joker, right? And so for me, the life lesson that is equivalent to the joker is this: life is a journey of the heart. The mind is only a helper, and the soul is the adventurer.
Wow.
And I think, to remember that is a reset, because when you find yourself when rock bottom or whatever, the way out of it is so generally is following your heart instead of paying too much attention to your mind. And you are in this body as a soul incarnated, so that's the adventure that that is on the journey. So the only direction is just following the heart, because the mind is only helper, helps you, but it's the heart that takes you out of problems and difficulties, and is the savior.
Wow, I think that's an excellent way to wrap up the book, and honestly, that's a great quote. Thank you for sharing that with us. Gabriella, again, thank you very much for your time. I really enjoyed this, getting to know you, and your journey is quite incredible, and I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much for having me and giving me the opportunity to share my message, really. Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you. That was an interesting interview with Gabriella, and if you go over to her website, you can find out more about her, and you can find all that in the show notes. One of the big key takeaways from this that I really found, and I often forget, she talks about spending time in nature and embracing that. It's so easy to get trapped in the house, especially now with computers and TV and binge watching and everything. There's really no need to go outside. I mean, you can order your groceries to your home. So, taking time out, going outside, and just go for a short walk if that's all you can do. I think that's a really good key takeaway. And the second item was the relationship that she was in that we talked about early on in the interview, how it didn't identify her after they broke up. It really catapulted her to become who she is now, I think. What were your key takeaways from that episode? I'd love to hear.
Thanks for listening to the UpRev Ninja podcast with your host, Tom Hudson. Navigate to our website at uprev.ninja today, where you will find additional resources to help you discover the best version of you. While you're there, join our newsletter and join the discussion on your favorite social media platforms. We've got some awesome guests lined up to share with us how they are becoming the best versions of themselves. Again, thank you for listening. Now it's time to go out and uprev your life.